Let me just remind you guys, this is we're recording this call is recorded. There you go. Right. Thanks very much. Yeah, so thanks very much for joining us today. We're going to have a really interesting chat coming up about App Store optimization, given by our guest speaker, Andre. We are representing a group called IGG, which is the Indie Games Group Europe. We are a group of people who are volunteering and also cooperating with Google because we're super passionate about indie games. And, with the current turmoil in the games community and with the current sort of huge, exciting changes that are coming up in the future, I think it's a really exciting place to be. So we want to build up a community based around people who either work in indie games or are interested in indie games, or, for example, want to learn how to get into the industry. As Mikhail said just a moment ago, please join our Discord so that you can keep on top of what we've got going on. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that later. Anyway, without too much further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker for this evening. So his name is André Miraldo. He is studying as a doctorate in game design currently and is also working at Infinity Games as their head of App Store optimization and business development. So please welcome Andre. He's going to give his talk. And please, guys, if you would like to ask questions, that would be fantastic. Please feel free to put them in Discord or in the or just in the chat here as well. And Andre has specifically said he would love to get feedback. So please just, add whatever thoughts that you have. And we'll probably collect all of the questions together later in a Q&A session once Andre's got through the main part of what he wants to say. But anyway, I'm very excited. So without further ado, please welcome Andre. And the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Ed. So thank you all for coming in the first place. I'm Andre, and I'll present a little bit about ASO, which is mostly what I do in my daily job in Infinity Games. And just a little correction, I'm not the head of ASO, but the manager of ASO. Without further ado, here's our schedule for today. We'll have a quick introduction, which we're almost done with. Then I'll go over some of the ASO basics to get everyone into the same boat, because I believe that I may have people that know a lot about ASO and people that haven't heard what ASO is about. So I want to make this as accessible for everyone. So for this first session, as I plan to do a follow-up, and that's why I asked for your feedback, I'll focus on the ASO basics, on whatever App Store you're using, either it being Play Store or App Store, which are the main ones, and promotional content, which is one of the most powerful tools you can use as of now. And then I'll go over some practical examples to justify what I've shown you, and then we'll have our QA and wrap up until the end. So without further ado, I'll reintroduce myself. This is Andre. I'm the ASO and Business Development Manager at Infinity Games, and I'm also a digital game design PhD student at IAD here in Lisbon. I'm from Coimbra, which is a city a bit to the north, but now I live in Lisbon. So without further ado, let's then dive into the ASO basics. So to make everyone aware of what is ASO, ASO stands for App Store Optimization. It can be described as the use of several mechanisms to increase organic store visibility for a determined app. What does this mean? What's organic store visibility? Organic store visibility is basically allowing for users to discover your app by themselves. You're not shoving the app with paid advertising on their face. It's organic because the users are doing it for themselves. And these tools allow the users to find your app more easily, or when they see it, feel enticed to download it, install it, and use it. So what can we consider as ASO? Basically, everything that will promote the application you're working on the App Store and Play Store can be considered ASO. We are talking about app icons, custom store listing and pages, feature banners, keywords, promotional content, screenshots, trailers. All these materials are considered ASO because in one degree or another, they will influence the experience of the user in searching for your app and converting to your app. So let's talk about first the general recommendations so you get a gist of what is done throughout the industry in ASO. So you try to always have a complementary style in your app, which means you don't have the assets differing too much from each other. You want to have a degree of consistency, and so that users are able to recognize your app as a whole and not by individual features. And that applies to keeping things consistent in both stores, in Apple and in Play Store, because it's very easy if a friend of yours is showing you an app and you have a different mobile phone, like you have an iOS and your friend has an Android. If you search for the same app, which has same title, for instance, and the app icon is different, you'll get wondering, wait, but is this really the same app? Do I want to download this app? So it's important to keep things consistent in both stores. So then moving on, we have to stick to relevant keywords. By this, I mean that you, when writing your description, we'll go a little bit deeper on it later, we'll have to be aware of what our target is and what will our target search for. Because if we're using buzzwords, like if you put Facebook in a description of the game, people won't download your app. That will have rigorously no influence because there are thousands of other apps that will appear with the Facebook key, even if it on paper sounds good because people search a lot for Facebook. That's not how it works because that's not the target of your audience. So you have to be really aware of what your app does and everything that concerns it. So regarding images, you should also avoid the use of text, either it being in icons, promotional content, feature banners, only when necessary. Because sometimes the Google algorithm, besides not liking it, it diverts the attention from the core themes of your application. Other than that, you must have a video trailer because it's your easiest way of grabbing attention. You have to fully utilize all the slots that both app stores provide you. If you're not using that, well, you're basically letting go of free real estate. It's basically what this is. Yeah, so it's exploring all the free real estate in app stores, internet, to make your app the most visible possible. And also, you have to review the impersonation intellectual property policy, which means that you have to be very aware of not using copyrighted images or any other kind of intellectual property, because that can get your app delisted and will definitely get you in trouble if you're not compliant. And especially when we're talking about platforms such as big as Apple and Google, you know we're taking a big risk if you're using intellectual property that doesn't belong to you to promote your app. So among these things, you have to always be conscious of a target audience. You have to know who your app is directed to, because it's very difficult to appease the whole crowd at all times. And that's true for the app industry and game industry as well. So moving on, how do I know what's working when I have an asset that I want to put in the store? How do I know that my new icon is better than the previous one? So there's a tool for that, which exists in both stores to different extents, which I'll get on later. But A/B testing is definitely your best friend. A/B testing is the concept of testing assets versus one another. So what they do is you upload an image, and then that same image is going to be put against the image you have now in your app and will be shown to the same sized population. So you can then infer the effect on conversion and which of your users actually installed the app and how many of them were retained in the app, which means they, besides installing it, they were also using the app the following days, not only installed it. So these techniques allow us to understand what is working in terms of graphics. So you can test up to 3 new assets, which is not an A/B test, but A/B/C/D test, in which 25% of the population gets one image, and therefore you can test for both for retained and first-time users, which are the two metrics I told. First timers, the ones who install it first; retained, the ones who keep the app after installing it. They are available in both stores, but to different extents, and we'll go on after that. And this is very important and comes from working closely with my R team, which is we iterate a lot according to patterns and try to make objective tests, because we try the hardest to make our tests have any kind of sense. When you're testing, you have to try. I'll give an example right now, because this is what I mean when your tests have to have sense. When you're testing something, you need to test specific things. You need to test, for instance, here, we can see that we have roughly the same image with different tweaks to it. And here, we're validating the position of the girl relating to the old banner. And it was a test that went along well. Here you can see the installs numbers and the scaled, because sometimes you have a small audience, so you need to enlarge your scale. And basically what I'm trying you to say is that you have to be attentive to the graphics you select in order to obtain a result that matters. Because if you're testing stuff that's too different, you're not trying to discover any pattern. You're just throwing eggs at the wall and see what sticks. And sometimes, in a last resort, it makes sense to do that. But for a game that is already on the store, especially, and that has a big group of installed users, you shouldn't throw stuff at the wall like that, and you should test with criteria to study possibilities that should be taken into account in the next test. If it doesn't perform, there's no problem. The next test will surely account for that, because you incorporated the knowledge you drew from the first one. And that's one of the key importances in A/B testing. So this is the complementary graphic. Here you can see the dark one is the original listing, and that both listings perform better. So what we did, obviously, after this was promote the one that performed the best, and obviously that became our feature graphic for the whole audience. But now you're starting to ask yourselves, what the hell is a feature graphic? And yeah, we have to understand where we can find these assets in the store and what's their degree of importance as well. But just before that, so you know where to access the A/B tests, you have on the Google Play Store, on the left-hand sidebar, you have here store listing experiments, and the App Store, in also the left-hand sidebar, you have the product page optimization. Note that in App Store, it's a bit different from Google Play Store. Google Play Store is much more developer-friendly, but more about that later. So without further ado, let's go and dive deep into the Google Play Store. I'm going to talk a little bit about all the assets, and then I'll give some tips and tricks, especially regarding promotional content. But let's see what's the degree of importance of these assets, where will your users see them in the store, and basically some recommendations on how to go around them. So in Google Play Store, we have here Traffic's, one of our games, and I selected this because it has no promotional content and it's easier to understand where things are located. So App Icon. App Icon is obviously the most important graphic for both stores. In Play Store specifically, it's the only graphic that when using the search function, your user will be able to see unprompted. So to see screenshots, to see events, most of the time, unless it's being featured by Google, you would have to click on the arrow next to the icon to see more about the game. So therefore, icon is 100% the most important feature you will test in your A/B tests, and the most important for your users as well. It's also the first thing you'll see. So be really attentive to drastic changes to icons. It's very hard to perform on icons. And if you're trying to optimize and already have a good basis, it's really important to make small tweaks progressively and not change anything too radical. Because if you already have an established brand and you try to change too fast, the results will probably be bad. And if you're launching a new app, make sure it's representative of the app, that it goes aligned. You can go the clickbait route, yeah, it works. But if it's a new app, it probably won't work because if you go clickbait route, you're basically misleading your user. And if you do that on the beginning of an app, I don't believe that's the correct way to do it because you would be not having your own identity. And before you resort to those strategies, you should have your own identity and try to understand also what your users want. Because without your users, you're nothing. And if you don't give them something that they relate to, well, you're doing something wrong. So feature graphic. Feature graphic is kind of an interesting feature because most people don't know where it shows. Even when I first started working, feature graphic would be something that I would see as a banner, but no, feature graphic is this right here. That's the overlay until you play the video. It's very important to keep this into account because you'll always have this play button right here. So you have to put your text in a way that's not overlaid totally by the play button. And you can always, in feature graphic, it's okay to use text, by the way, unlike screenshots and promotional content, which is preferable not to. But it's an important graphic, although it's not as important, definitely, as the app icon. And yeah, it's exclusive to Play Store, so it doesn't exist on iOS. And we here at Infinity Games try to make it consistent with the icon because they will always show up once you open the app page. They will always show up in tandem. So it's important to keep them matching or at least close in order to create like a feeling of, wait, this app doesn't match with itself. What's going on? You don't want to provoke. You want to always have consistency in your assets so that your app is identifiable and is targeting the right audience. So going on with screenshots, these are really important as well because it's the most visual representation of what's happening in the game. And to access it, you have to scroll the video to the, in this case, to the left, and then you have up to, if I'm not mistaken, 8 screenshots or 10. And please do use them all because the more screenshots you are able to put, the more complete your app feels, the more Google knows you are using the resources they make available to you. And as you know, Google is always, but they are always watching. So it's really important to use all resources available to you in order to make sure you're not missing out on potential users. So yeah, slide to the right of the video, make use of the maximum number allowed, switch up the order with A/B testing. Imagine you don't have your R team or you don't have enough creative assets to test. Well, screenshots can help you solve that problem because you just switch up the order, and that's also a test. And it can have good results. It's not something that may result in rigorously nothing, because by switching up the either the format, the colors, the call to action in a screenshot can make a bigger effect than you think. It's not the same as an optimized icon, but it's definitely something that can be done when you're lacking assets and are short on time or something like that. So yeah, avoid excessive tests. You want to be representative of the app, and device use. By device use, I mean having like a phone inside the screenshot. No, you should try to avoid that. If it's merely like a frame representative, no problem at all. But if you use like a real phone, it should be good. So yeah, submit for all sizes, including Wear OS if available. So you have different sizes for different tablets and Android phones. Apple is a bit more, needs more sizes than Android, but here you'll have to upload, if I'm not mistaken, 3 sizes of each screenshot and then Wear OS if it's supported by your app. So the store trailer, there's nothing much here to add. Everyone knows what a trailer is, and how to access it. We've already talked about it, but it's important to understand a couple of things. It only plays when prompted. And so until you hit play, you are not seeing the trailer or opening the store. You can, for Google Store, just upload it on YouTube, and then by the use of store listing experiments, using it to test it out in your store listing. And the most important, a trailer is not an ad. A trailer has to be representative. While an ad is something that has a couple of seconds to be shown, a trailer is something that a person is seeing willfully. They made the decision to watch the trailer. So it means they are invested in the app. So you don't need to catch their attention with some, again, clickbaity or scandalous imagery. No, you just have to make sure that it's the most representative with the store and with your app itself. A trailer is not an ad. I cannot stress this enough. So yeah, moving on a bit, we have the text-based categories, and there's not much to talk about here. You can find them down here as you scroll. It's not the most important, but it is important for one thing, which is the search algorithm. While most people won't read the description of a game besides the first 2 or 3 lines, it's really important to be aware that this text all goes into what is searched by the user. So you'll have to know what keywords you're targeting. There's a lot of software that allows you to count keywords and give you a percentage of some certain keywords, for instance, puzzle, game, whatever your app may be, or streaming or live or something like that. It depends a lot, obviously, on the app you're using, but it's really important to stick to what you know your user is going to search, your target user, because once again, you can't please everyone. So at least in the beginning, stick to what you know that your audience is looking for, because that's the way you will show up better in store rankings and how to increase them, because people are not going to search for the icon. The icon is what makes it stand out once they already searched, but they have to search to meet what they are looking for. So don't think that by having a pretty icon, you don't need to have a good description. No, you have to be consistent and have quality across all store. It's really important because, yeah, as I told you, it's the whole concept of bringing together in a, as you can see, a small page to make the user want to download your application. And for that, they have to reach it. So yeah, avoid repetition and keyword and use keyword density trackers. Can only be A/B tested for custom store pages, which I'll talk right after this about custom store pages and custom store listings. Make sure to include relevant keywords. Do not cheat and insert buzzwords. The store rankings are the metric that you'll draw from here, and try to match keywords and be mindful of size. By mindful of size, I'm saying that, for instance, in Google, you have around 4,000 characters to use. I'm saying that, well, then at least use 3,500, because you're making sure you're not leaving, once again, free real estate open in the wild. So custom store listings, the name speaks a bit for itself. It's a feature that's getting more and more notoriety. This year, even I attended a couple of seminars where this was blown out of the water and said, this is the future, because custom store listings allow you to target markets that you haven't explored yet, especially in countries that have a low percentage of English-speaking crowd. Because custom store listings, what they basically do is allow you to have the whole store description and even graphics adapted and localized to a certain region. For markets such as Japan, South Korea, this is a major trick, because those are societies that and countries that spend a lot and have a big mobile culture with their own perks. So if your target is one of these countries or any other country that has a very specific model, well, you for sure should have a custom store listing for them. So yeah, it's one of the most important for the coming years. You can use automation tools for this. However, please use them with critical thinking. Like, no one is expecting you to know Arab, Japanese, Chinese, and Russian. No, but you can write a description without automation tools that you produced, and then translate it and then double check it. That's something that's totally okay. You don't have to have a professional translator for you for each and any one of the descriptions. No, you have to just be critical of what you're doing, and don't do things that you know could be misleading for your potential users. So um, yeah, basically this is what I told you. And where can you find this? Here and here. So you can do it either at the main store listing or at custom store listings. So yeah, I think now we're done with Google Play, and so we'll talk a little bit about App Store. It will be a bit shorter as we're almost running out of time, but no worries. So in App Store, we also have graphics. We have app icons, screenshots, and promotional video. We do not have feature banner. As I told you, it was an exclusive. And we have a description and a new one called keywords. The other ones, there's a kind of mistake here. It's not promotional content, but it's in-app events. It's the same thing, different name. So let's talk about App Store. So this is how your application appears initially in the App Store. You first have the icon, which will be pretty obvious by now where it's located, and it's also the most important and distinct feature of the store. So the big difference in App Store from Play Store is really that fact that we have no feature banner, and app icon is really important. And you have to A/B test in App Store. You really have to, upload a build with an icon. You can't do it like Google when you just have to upload your JPEG or PNG or whatever. No, here you have to submit a build with the icon to be able to test it. So it's a little bit more annoying. It requires dev work and artwork. But yeah, it's important, as I told you in the beginning, to keep this consistent across both stores, because it's very hard to get the same results, especially if your app behaves different across stores. So my recommendation here is to always test on the App Store that has more users for your application, because that way you could apply the knowledge that you have to another app store. If you are trying to test both, and even if you do the same test and the population is very different, especially in terms of size, that could harm your results. So stick to testing one kind of asset in one place at a time, and then if it goes well in one place, then you can translate it to the other and test it there. At the same time, you would be harming your results, because you would be dealing with different population sizes. So yeah, screenshots are much more important in iOS. It also has a couple of caveats. Of course, they are there. It also has a couple of caveats because here you don't have your feature banner, and this is one of the main places where you'll draw your users for, as well as you have the video, which here you don't have the feature banner. This is the actual first frame of the video, which is something you should also pay attention to when uploading videos to the Apple Store. And yeah, more relevant in the App Store as feature ban is absent. Once again, users may differ between stores, place it next to a video. Yeah, and they show up on the search page unprompted. And this will be mentioned after when I talk about in-app events, because this is really important. If you have an in-app event active in your application, and if it's targeting new users, when a new user is searching for your app, he won't see the screenshots on the search function. He will see the event. And you have to really consider if the trade-off of having an event and the possibility of being featured by Apple is really, that valuable, or if the screenshots are able to attract new users more efficiently. I'll go over this a little bit more in a bit, but I really wanted to make this statement that promotional content in Play Store, always yes, go for it. Promotional content in iOS, be considerate and be mindful of what you're doing, as it may not have the effect that you are hoping for. So description and keywords, as similarly to what happens in Play Store, you also have your descriptions and keywords. Here, they are below the description, the screenshots of the game. So they are even less noticed than in the Play Store. But the thing is, this also contributes, as well as keywords, for the search algorithm. And that's, once again, what you're thriving for. And really important is try to match the what's in your keywords, because keywords is like an 80-character string that you can separate words by commas. For instance, like calm, relaxing, puzzle, just basically those words that describe your game should be in your keywords. And then on the description, you can incorporate those keywords, making mention of them. No, do not overuse them, but yeah, keep to the keywords that will attract your intended users. So it does not show, the keywords do not show up on the app page, just on the, it's just for internal recognition. And yeah, important for the search algorithm. And try to, once again, be mindful of the size and use as much characters as you can. So we finally made it to promotional content. Promotional content is a new feature. It's not available yet for all accounts, but fortunately it is for ours, and it has worked wonders for us. It's something that allows your app to be featured by either Play Store or Apple. And with the right planning and with a good team to support you, you can really up your numbers. And this is something that I want to stress. Please use this to your advantage, bearing in mind it has to reflect what's happening on your app. You can create fake promotional content, for instance, offers and then tweak a price or something, and it goes through. But if you announce a major event and the user is converted, logs in, and doesn't see any event happening, well, then you're misleading him again, and that should be avoided. So without further ado, where can we find this promotional content? Here in promotional content, and in the App Store in in-app events. So what is actually promotional content? To upload the promotional content on the Play Store, you need a tagline, a long description, a landscape graphic, and a square graphic. So there are various types of promotional content. You can promote an offer, you can promote a time-limited event, and major updates. This all is up to you. I don't think there's so far a significant difference in the reach we have. Obviously, the offers have less conversions because users have to pay money to convert in those cases. But here is what fits your app. Do not try to chase something that your app can't do. Try to keep to your standards and see what works for your app. So this is the aspect of promotional content in the Play Store. Here is when you are browsing in the store. No, actually, this is when you are browsing in the store or open. And remember, it always shows featured. The difference between Android and Apple is that this is featured unprompted, but in Apple, the screenshots are featured unprompted, while here they aren't unprompted. So there's no trade-off in the apps in the Play Store for the use of promotional content, while there is for new users in Apple Store. This, I can stress this enough. So, and this is, if you're lucky, which is getting a message by Google saying, great, your promotional content was featured. This is what you are thriving for effectively. This is the promotion that you will get on the front page. So moving on, I'll tell you some of the best practices for promotional content. Do not use capitalizations. Do not be clear about the purpose and how can your user access the promotional content. Do not use words as install, pay, buy. Those are off limits. And be aware of the graphic safe zone, which you can find in the promotional content guidelines. And who am I when Google does all the work for me to have this link here? So yeah, pay attention to this so your graphic gets featured and you're in line with Google guidelines. The more you are in line with the guidelines, the more success will definitely your promotional content have. And for instance, I have here a curious case which I had to fight with one of our artists when we had this little image. And this little image was accepted for promotional content, but this one wasn't. Can you guess why? Can you see the grass? The grass was being interpreted by the algorithm as an M or an N. And we had to remove it in order for it to be compliant with Google guidelines. So sometimes it's dumb, yeah, but sometimes it requires a lot of effort to know what's wrong. And here it was something as simple as a leaf of grass. And if we didn't have if you were open between me, who does ASO, and the artists, we wouldn't be able to pinpoint this out. So it's really important when you have availability to be close and work really together with your art team, because this will be like what makes the difference between your assets getting better or not and you're getting successful errors. Right now, I fortunately can say that thanks to these studies that we did, we basically all of our promotional content gets featured if it's included in the it's submitted according to the regulations. And yeah, this is interesting, but more interesting, and it's when you get this message. This is what I was talking about. Great news, the high quality priority event was chosen to be featured on high profile surfaces on Google Play. This is what you're thriving for. And if you see this, it's guaranteed you'll have a good time. So moving on, still on promotional content, here is the screenshot slide, as I like to call it. This is where you get like things that are not obvious, that are difficult to get information from, and things that I can assure you that will work no matter what's your app, because you're showing to Google your commitment to use their resources. So the first is to fully use the 4 priority slots. You have 4 of them, 1 very high and 3 high. The very high one should be drafted 1 month prior to submission and to live, and submitted 15 days prior to live. For the high priority ones, just 15 days prior to live should be more than enough. Another insight is that periodically scheduled events can create a cumulative effect, creating sustainable growth in games. What does this mean? This means that you get an uplift, and I'll show you results in the practical cases in a bit. So this means that when you generate an uplift, usually your content gets promoted for a week. So if you have that uplift monthly, you can basically raise the baseline of the installs of your game. And I'll give evidence to support this, because the more consistent you are with showing promotional content, the more Google will promote your content. So Google isn't sometimes our ally, but in these cases, it really is, because it rewards our consistency and rewards the commitment we do with bringing out quality content to our users. And that's something we must take account in. And as soon as you have possibility, and I've seen some questions pop around, if you don't have access to it yet, please contact your Google POC or get in touch with someone from Google and say you would like to be interested or qualified to have promotional content, because I can definitely assure you it's one of the best tools I'm using in ASO. And promotional content has something which is the import feature, where you can use a CSV, very simple, to upload immediately in different custom store listings. And that's really good because you can create stuff like this, where you have your event going on, translated and localized into different regions. This allows the event to be promoted in regions where it wouldn't be if it was only using the English basis. So once again, it's free real estate, and please try to have as many custom store listing pages, to be honest, that you think fits your game. Finally, we go on to Apple a bit for in-app events. I wish I could give you more insight in in-app events, but in-app events, unfortunately, is a black box, as is most of Apple actually, but works a bit differently. First, it doesn't have promotions or offers, so the amount of content you can promote is much more limited. So you require a name, a short description, long description. The main difference is that you have a slightly shorter description here in Apple and a vertical graphic instead of a square one. And these are the categories, as I told you, no offers. So bear that in mind that you could have sales on your apps in Apple Store. And this is what I was talking about, the event purpose. So if you use appropriate for all users or attract new users, you would be showing the event instead of the screenshots to first-time installers. And that's the trade-off you really have to measure here to see if it's worth it for your specific case or not. Because if you're not, I mean, for lapsed users and active users, sure, shoot promotional content all the way. But for first-time users, please be thoughtful, because it's very likely that the event banner doesn't attract as much as the screenshots for the game itself. So yeah, this is up to you, but these are just my words of advice. And yeah, you can see here the difference of what I'm saying. On top, you have Infinity Loop, which doesn't have a promotional event going on, an in-app event. And on the bottom, you have Music Tower, which does have. So yeah, it's this trade-off I'm talking about, and the one that you should be aware. So the first two options in event purpose will show the event to new players. That's what I want you to get from this part. And yeah, the event deep link is the last part I will mention regarding Apple, which is the link that will bring the players directly to your event. And we're still experimenting with it. I'd like to thank the dev team for helping me implement this, because it was something that we were struggling with finding. But yeah, it's fantastic that we now have it, and I wish I could share much, but we're still waiting for results. So now we get into the practical cases. Just we still have 10 minutes, should be fine. So yeah, for Music Tower, was a game that we acquired recently. This was the original icon. We had over 10 tests, and we were having difficulty replacing that because, well, it's the piano from the game. It had some empathy, and it had been there for a while now. But we had two creatives we wanted to test. Ones that featured gameplay, which is something that, well, it's pretty much related to the game. These ones, yeah, they look cool. So I know, well, you guys can speak, but we don't have much time, so I can make a query. Any provisions, any expectations we had regarding this test were blown out of the water, because both of the new icons absolutely demolished the old one. What I'm telling you here is that for each person that was seeing the old icon, two of them were installing the new ones. This is something else. This was something that I never saw so much green in the performance, even with going over 100% in confidence. So basically, the logic here is, okay, this works. So one of these icons has to stay. What was our immediate next move? We immediately started another test where we eliminated this one and put up this one against this one to find out if we hadn't rushed our decision and if the day really was better than the night. Because that way we wouldn't be losing users that that could see the first icon, and we were trying to understand of which one of them was actually the best performing one. So yeah, it's always a logic. Try to make logic out of your tests. I can't stress this enough. Try to make them make sense and do things in a constructive way that you can take inference out of your tests. It's really important to do that and just not test for the sake of it. They have to have logical sense. And now, promotional content effect. I saw a question that was requesting my results on promotional content, and fear not, because I won't leave you hanging. So this is a recon. This was the graphic of installs. We're talking about, well, an average of 1,800 installs on a daily basis. It's not bad. It's not that great either, but this is with absolutely no promotional content running. So let's see what happens when we do have a very high promotional content running submitted 1 month before. Please look at the scale. We're talking about during roughly 2 weeks, almost more than the triple, almost the triple of installs with a free tool. This is a free tool. And this goes on to even raise the baseline, as I told you before, on the consistency. After we went with another promotional content which had, this was a high one because it has a high peak, but it's quite shorter in terms of length. But it still allowed us to raise the bar. And as you can see, we're over 2,000 daily installs when we rarely did in the first place. This is very important, and it's a very powerful tool for you to promote your application. If it's a premium game, you can make it free for 2 days, 3 days, and you'll see that it will have an impact on the baseline. So please try it out once you have a chance, and please get in touch in Google so they can offer you the chance to use promotional content. This is the bar that you're aiming from to see the future. Here, as you can see, our game was shown to roughly 400,000 people more than usual. And that's the power of promotional content. You can also get the conversion rates, which would also help you decide which promotional content should I submit. Should it be an event, a promotion, new content? It's up to you and to guide your results. So my final thoughts for you guys, and before we have a quick Q&A, is test as much as you can and with purpose. Make the most of all the tools provided. Be consistent and true across stores, features, and creatives. Iterate small steps at a time and be patient. Do not rush it out. If you don't get the results you want on the first try, iterate over them and try to understand why it failed. And work closely with the art team, because the more close you work, the better your results will be, and the better, like, the multitude of opinions you can get to people who have different artistic and expressive opinions from you can really make you stand out. So yeah, this for now was my part, and come at me with your questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andre. I think your talk really had something, well, it had something for people who know quite a lot about ASO, and also I think was pretty comprehensible for those of us who don't know very much about it as well. So that was amazing. Thank you so much. So Andre made a point of asking me before this that he would like to get whatever feedback you guys may have about this. So please feel free to drop that. I think in the Discord would be good, as we're getting tight on time now. Yeah, the address you will find in the chat here on this call for our Discord. Andre also has a lot of other really interesting information to share on a lot of other subjects. But when it comes to ASO, and I think perhaps some other things as well. Yeah, it would be great to have some dialogue going to find out what people would be really, really interested in. Like, where do you want to go from here if you would like to know more about these things? So
Yeah,
it's really interesting. Let me also just make a couple of quick plugs. And maybe we've got a couple of minutes for questions right at the end. So yeah, April 4th, please put it in your diaries, guys. So Greg is going to be giving a talk about how to get really fucking good with AI very, very quickly, without a lot of different dead ends. Basically, like how to learn AI tools, what's the fastest way of doing that. And I think that every single news announcement that comes out is just showing us how important this is going to be. So that's something that I'm really, really looking forward to. So as I say, that's on April the 4th. We're going to be sharing a link to that very soon, I think, in our Discord. And then also coming up later during this year, date is TBD, but the Google Study Jams will be beginning. So if you would like to get some Google certification and study under some experts chosen by Google, then follow us and you will find out more about that in good time. Anyway, I'm rushing, so we've got to get back. I think, do we have any questions? Feel free to, I think, just like open your mic and just speak freely. I think we can handle that. And I will shut up for a bit to see if there's anything else we can get out of Andre. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending if we get cut off. Thank you so much.
Yeah, as we have like 3 minutes left, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I think most of the questions that I had during the session were answered by the session itself. So anything you want to shoot at me, guys, please go ahead. And I just hope I was able to give you some information, bring you something new, and to, make sure you all get the most out of your apps, because that's what we try to do every day.
Amazing. Yeah.
I have a question.
Quick.
Sure. You talked about.
It said 6 p.m. CET. I think it's 6 p.m. WET. But anyway, sorry. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, and my question is in regards to keyword research. How should we know what keywords actually use and not to miss on actually the relevant keywords that, because you can think that those keywords match my app, but there are probably some ways to figure out how to get the keywords that are the best to be used for that kind of product.
Definitely, and I can help you with that. What I usually do when I'm writing a description or trying to find a new way to reinvent keywords is basically to study the direct competitors. If you go to the direct competitors and you check their word density, the keywords they're using, because what I seem to realize is that most of the time, the keyword density is reflected on the keywords themselves, especially in App Store. So doing that research, you can see more or less the rates that the keywords of your competitors have, and then try to replicate something. It doesn't have to be equal, but proportional at least. Changing the like the title of the name, obviously, and those to match the density of a good performing competitor. That's what I usually do. Not sure if it's the answer you were looking for, but it's one of the ways I do to study. But yeah, I also try to always include like the title and its appendixes in the keywords themselves whenever possible.
Maybe from my experience, if I could real quickly, it's just that it helped me to do a research beforehand, through a tool like Uptwig or something, like what could be good keywords. But also that changed like during the course, like I've noticed that I was getting some traffic from keywords I wasn't expecting, and then I just like try to include them more in my description and stuff, and then I found out like, oh, it's even better keyword to focus on than my previous one. So from my experience, like it's a process over months that I find new keywords that are better than the ones before.
Yeah, basically it's what they always say in this industry is do what works for you. So yeah, it's pretty much like that.
I'd love to hear more about your whatever hacks you might have about. You mentioned earlier, iterate according to patterns, which sounds like really, yes, like that's obviously what you should do. But like, if anyone is stuck in terms of how you can think about that, or like how you can do that better, because it's something that sounds easy in theory, but maybe is in practice not quite so simple. With logos, I mean, sorry, with icons.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the way to go. You have to be creative and study a lot other ventures when you are stuck. And I think, well, you can always use automation tools like Midjourney and such to, create concepts, but don't use them thoroughly. That I don't recommend at all. I recommend you to study upon them. Like if you're having a block, just try to conceptualize a new way of interpreting your app. Ask for help of an external artist. Don't be afraid to get new insights, because your own vision might be harnessing that. So yeah, pretty much try to find alternative ways, get new opinions, and don't be afraid to risk if you're really stuck.
If no one has questions, I have another one.
Go ahead.
Okay, now I expect like people new to releasing games that they have zero budget for marketing. Now, what's your thoughts on paid versus organic acquisitions, and can you make it work without any marketing budgets? Let's say you are starting a new studio now, you have development budgets, you develop a game, but you actually have no budget for marketing, like paid marketing. Can you make it work nowadays, or what are your thoughts?
It's not easy at all. It depends a lot on the scale, because even if you have no budget, your main option would be probably to search a partner that could help you with marketing, and for that you would need metrics. And here the reasoning is a bit: you would try to soft launch your game and try to get good metrics, and from that, I think you should always have some paid user acquisition, because organic by itself, it can work, but you have to be really lucky. Like it's not 100% science. And if you're gathering installs with paid user acquisition, that will also boost your rankings in the store, even if it's not organic. But it will count to the same end, especially when you considering also App Store and stuff like that, which is even more black boxy. You really have to, make everything work, because from my experience, organic by itself for titles that might be a bit stale but are good games and are consistent, works. But for games that you're trying to push out, and especially if they're, of course it varies from game to game, it depends if it's a free game or a paid game, but for a free game, for instance, it should be, I would really recommend to get in touch with someone that could promote your game, because if you have like actually zero budget, like only the free tools might get you good reach, but it's not the reach to scale how much you would want to, definitely.
Thanks. So sad.
I wish the world would definitely be a better place. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any more questions. Otherwise,
if there's any further questions, guys, feel free to share. Otherwise, please, hop on our Discord, and let us know what you would like to see next in terms of either this kind of thing like App Store optimization, or also get on board in terms of learning how to use AI. That's the next big thing that we've got coming up. Yeah, really exciting.
Yep. Then thank you so much, everyone, once again. I hope you learned something today, and I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Yeah, and thanks very much, Andre, for coming and giving us such an entertaining discussion. Thank you very, very much. Much appreciated.
Oh.
Cheers. All right, well, I think we'll leave it there then. Thanks very much, everybody. See you on Discord, and yeah, see you at the next chat. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.